Jason Kelce overpowered by emotion on Monday afternoon when he stepped to the microphone in Philadelphia and announced that the 7-time Pro Bowler is walking away from football. The famous podcaster, potentially Taylor Swift's brother-in-law, he is leaving and retiring from football. The Pro Football Hall of Fame has already tweeted out, keep your eyes out on 2029, which is kind of crazy to suggest, but he is probably almost certainly actually a first ballot Hall of Famer. Not that like that. I mean, it does carry a little more gravitas. He's just he referenced it. He's called himself overrated in the speech, but he also referenced that he's been called the greatest center of all time, which like it's a viable claim, Breach, and I think it's a big loss for the Eagles because this guy was playing at a really high level still.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to look at what he was doing up until the final year of his career, and I think that's why this was such a difficult decision for him, because he has been effective despite having already played in the NFL for 13 years and despite being 36 and would have turned 37 at some point if he had played next season. But we're talking about a guy who was a first-team All-Pro 6 times. Brinson, you know how rare that is for a center to be an All-Pro 6 times? I believe he is the 5th center in NFL history, the entire history of the NFL, to have that done. So when you just look at that, you just don't see centers this talented and have this long of a career, this successfully come along very often anymore. But I will say, as soon as he showed up and got drunk at the Bills-Chiefs playoff game, I was 98% sure he was done, because he was just having too much fun. There's no coming back from that. There is no, you put yourself out there and wearing Chiefs gear and obviously supporting your brother. But he just seemed to be enjoying himself too much to possibly, like his mind had already been made up.
Right, yeah,
Josh?
it did. Yeah,
Will?
I was saying, Josh, it seemed like since basically the end of the season, he said, "I'm not going to make my decision now, Josh." I mean, it feels like it's been a done deal. When you look at the Eagles' offensive line, I mean, do you think that what kind of drop off do you think we see here?
Well, there's going to be a drop-off, certainly, because, as you said, he was one of the best centers in football and has been for plus. He's been playing at that high of a level. I would imagine that the brotherly shove has taken a little bit of a toll on him over the past couple of years, but it is an interesting dynamic because some players, they wait too long to retire. Yes. The game has passed them by. That was not the case with Jason Kelce here. I mean, he was still arguably the top center in football this past season. Not only will his play on the field be missed, but so will his personality. So for that sake alone, I hope that he still sticks around the game of football, maybe even a little bit more than just the podcasting world. But, obviously one of the better personalities in football, very genuine, and the NFL needs more of that. So hopefully he is around in some capacity. But as far as the roster construction is concerned, Philadelphia's kind of been planning for this the past couple of years. He was very late in his career, so Howie Roseman knew at some point in time this was going to occur, and they've been able to make plans for that. So they went out, they got Cam Jurgens, a center from Nebraska, in the draft, I believe a couple years ago now.
2022, yep.
2022, and then they got Landon Dickerson, who was also a center at Alabama. So they've got a couple of guys already on the roster that are certainly capable of stepping into that role. It's not going to be Jason Kelce, but certainly an adequate replacement for him. Better situation than a lot of teams would have when one of the best centers is walking away from football.
No, it's a great point. And I think the plan is to move Jurgens to center. Obviously, if that doesn't work out, Dickerson, as you know, has experience playing center at a really high level. So, I mean, they do have options. And I think that's really the hallmark. I think there's going to be a drop off for the Eagles next year, just in terms of the brotherly shove. It's not that style, like being able to get out and on the edge athletically, and to pull that way. He's maybe the greatest ever. I think you'll see a drop off in that run game and in that pass game. Shifting centers always, I guess, sort of an underrated aspect. We saw like when Justin Herbert added Corey Linsley, a little bit of a brief bump, but then you improve. I think it's going to affect Jalen Hurts. I do think though that you have to, like you talk about good organizations. Smart organizations, they plan for these things, and by having a plan in place, you're not going out and drafting a center and be like, all right, dude, be good this year, like be good from Jump Street. So that's huge. He will definitely be involved in the podcast, and I'm sure he will be around football. The Kelce the first family of football, the Kelces, I guess the Mannings and one of the royal families of football. Or is it the Matthews is the first family of football? Whatever. Or the Breaches.
You know, a crazy fun fact, Jason Kelce from the University of Cincinnati played against Sean McVay when the two of them were in college.
That is a good fact. Cincinnati born and New Heights is their show. Of course, check it out. If you're watching this podcast, you probably
Brenton, Cincinnati College, Cleveland born. People in Cleveland.
Cleveland born. That's right.
Send you hate mail if you mistake Cleveland with Cincinnati.
That's right, because he did point out in his speech too. Oh yeah, two more things he pointed out. He said, I grew up as a Cleveland fan, and so I watched all my favorite athletes leave. He's like, hell, even a whole team left, and then noted that he really wanted to play for one team his entire career. And so, the only way to control that is maybe to walk away a year before, you're actually physically done. I do think though that, you've heard, if you've heard him talk on the podcast, he's hinted at this pretty aggressively over the last 6 to 9 months. Particularly, really, he could have even retired after last year. I think his wife even mentioned that she was surprised he came back.